It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interview. Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Rose, Anson, yes! Caught! Touchdown! They did it!
Welcome on in, everyone, to the Full Court Press. Here on a Tuesday, Jason Walker, J.D. Walker to my right, Eric Frandsen across from me here in, what is it, Studio 7?
Studio 7.
Are we going to start calling it? I just say Studio 7, just make it iconic.
Live from Studio 7 in downtown Logan.
Wow.
Is this downtown Logan? We're like,
oh my, what a critic this today already, man. We're already in it. The Jazz won last night, Jason. You should be in a good mood.
I should be finally in a good mood. This is some of the teams I root for actually won, although I wasn't actually watching that game, funnily enough. And that's the one they decided to win, of course.
Maybe we found a little superstition we need to follow there.
Just to have me not watch this. Well, that's the
Preoccupied Jason, please.
Well, that's the weird thing. A lot of the teams that I root for play better when I'm not watching. I don't know why. Maybe I'm going to get some Aggie fans to tell me to stop going to the games.
Yeah, well, what can we do this Saturday? So we've got to book Jason. I'm going to have to call your mom this Saturday and see if we can't get her to book you for the whole day.
Technically,
I have some inside information.
Technically, that's actually already happened.
Maybe something like that going on.
See, we're working on it, Aggie fans.
Okay, but that's only going to work for basketball. I'm not going to be at basketball on Saturday, but I'm going to be watching football.
Oh, no. Mama Walker's going to take care of it. We got it all hooked up.
It's like, oh, you got to fix the car or something, even though I don't know how to fix cars. But you'll be doing yard work, shoveling snow or something like that at 10 at night as the Aggies are playing Washington State. We're going to do some preview of Washington State today as part of our show. We'll have some audio from coaches, players talking about this matchup with the Cougars. It's rivalry week. It's hate week. It's the Cougars. The Aggies are facing the Cougars.
It's the wrong Cougars, right?
Oh, okay. Never mind.
It will be interesting to see how this relationship with Washington State evolves over time, because Utah State and Washington State as institutions have grown kind of close the last several years, because USU wanted to create a school of veterinary medicine, and they really basically leaned on Washington State to help them kind of forge that path. They developed some curriculum. They would send students there. And so there's kind of a growing relationship between Utah State and Washington State. So will be interesting to see how that relationship evolves on the playing field as well.
Wazoo, a great college. I've got some friends who are in veterinary and technology and stuff, and really excited when they started building that up at Utah State. It's going to open up a wide variety of things, because that program for Wazoo actually attracts people from all over the western United States. So just another way the Aggies are building. And I know our ice cream's on top, but guys, I'm telling you what, there is a cheese called Cougar Gold from Pullman. And they do their dairy really seriously, like we take our Aggies dairy really seriously. And, man, if any Aggie fans are going to be up in Pullman, I will hook it up. I will pay the traveling cost to get that Cougar Gold back to Logan. So just throwing that out there. That's how good it is.
So after Utah State won the dairy war and the creamery war against BYU, where it's like everyone knows the Aggie ice cream is better, now they got to win it against Washington State, the dairy wars.
Well, you know what? The Aggies have a heads up because my ex-wife is a Cougar fan, so you know what? They're going to take it anyway.
Which kind of Cougar?
The Wazoos, not BYU.
I was about to say, we got to be specific now.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh my God.
So Washington State 7-1 this season. A team that now is ranked number 20 in the AP poll. They've just kind of been slowly rising. I don't think anybody's really talked about Washington State as one of the threats for the college football playoff all year. The Pac-12 doesn't have an automatic bid. Like they, either Washington State or Oregon State, although Oregon State's pretty much out of it because they're like 4 or 5 loss team at this point. But Washington State can only get into the playoff by being an at-large team. But a few weeks left to play, 7-1, ranked 20th in the AP poll. We're going to see what the college football playoff poll is like. That's coming out later today. I believe 5 o'clock is usually about when they release it. So we'll go into the second hour and have a chance to look at that when it comes out. And it'll be interesting to see, like, where's Washington State? Where's Boise State? Where's Army? We'll have a chance to look at that. But Washington State's just kind of like on the edge of that discussion being like, hey, what about us? One loss team out of the old Pac-12. If they finish the season really, really strong, there's every chance they may be able to sneak in.
I mean, the chance that they do finish strong, they've got the Aggies coming up this weekend, then New Mexico, Oregon State, Wyoming. There's no world beaters on that schedule, but the one thing that Washington State fans are going to look back at and look at their schedule, the team in front of them for the college football playoff for that spot is the only one they've dropped to this year. So that may be the game that you look back going, what if for Washington State?
Yeah, if they'd beaten Boise State, they'd pretty much be in it right now because they'd be undefeated. They'd probably be about where Boise State is in the AP poll, where Boise State's 12th now, I think.
Yep.
They'd pretty much be in that exact same spot, if not slightly higher than that potentially. But now they're kind of relying on everyone else because you mentioned the rest of their schedule. It's both a blessing and a curse because their remaining schedule is very winnable games against Utah State, New Mexico, Wyoming, and Oregon State as well. But the rest of their schedule is also against Utah State, New Mexico, Oregon State, and Wyoming. That's not going to impress anybody.
No, I mean, they got to hope that Texas Tech somehow improves. Texas Tech had a nice win over the weekend. Washington had a nice win over the weekend. They have to hope that those two teams specifically really rally and continue to play well to improve their resume because they don't really have very many strong resume wins on their schedule. Washington State would have to get a lot, not just win the rest of their games, but have massive style points because they've got to be up there pretty high to get an at-large opportunity for the college football playoff. But that's still weeks away. They're trying to prepare for Utah State. This is a team that also had a bye week this last week. Washington State has had an extra week to get healthy. They've had an extra week to scout the Aggies. And this is a team that has had a good number of games that were pretty close. While they've only had that one loss, they're not really like steamrolling through the competition. They had a double overtime win over San Jose. They only beat Washington by 5 points. Beat Fresno State by 8. The San Diego State, that game was down to the wire, only winning by 3. So there's a good number of games on their schedule where they're doing enough to win and give them credit for that. But they're not really blowing away their opponents.
Yeah, it is interesting because you mentioned all those games. Those are basically the games against San Jose State, Fresno State, San Diego State. Basically, that's the middle of the Mountain West. A bunch of teams that are like 4-5, 5-3, things like that. Decent teams, but not the cream of the crop of the Mountain West. And those are the teams that Washington State is like barely beating or beating by a fairly narrow margin. Now, it probably means that they're most likely going to be able to handle Utah State, but I think it goes to your point that this is, you think of, it's a 7-1 team. This is an impossible task. They're just way better.
Here's another ranked team. Yeah. Watch out.
But it's like, are they?
No, not really.
Yeah, are they that good? Maybe on par with the UNLV in a lot of ways. Even though UNLV has 1 or 2 extra losses than Washington State does. So it's definitely going to make for a really hard matchup. And this is a team with a lot fewer weaknesses than, say, a Wyoming, because Utah State was able to exploit a lot of the weaknesses, or at least not be burned by Wyoming as much, because there are a lot of weaknesses of that Cowboys team. Utah State's not going to have that luxury with Washington State. They're going to face a very dynamic offense and a fairly capable defense, one that's, gone 3 straight weeks holding teams under, 27 points. Granted, for 2 straight weeks, they allowed 52 and 45. Granted, that 52 was in, overtime, so a few extra points there. But still, we've seen it up and down from this defense.
I think the matchup that I'm looking at is their offense seems to run through Mater. I'm just going to give a Disney reference there to Cars, but he is responsible for 18 of their touchdown passes to over 2,000 yards in the air, and then he's got almost 600 yards rushing with 10 touchdown carries. I mean, this is going to be a guy that you're going to have to game plan for. And I think what keys me into a matchup is John Miller, the Oregon State transfer that's come over and had a heck of a couple of weeks stepping in for those injured spots on the linebacking core. But I think John Miller, and we've had a couple of guys that spied Dampier back in the thing. I think that might be something we have to do, because this quarterback is just, he's got that, the talent's there and everything, but it seems, Jason, he has that extra X factor for Washington State. I know the schedule doesn't have like world beaters on it, but when like the time came to show up, this guy's got that X factor at the end of the game. So he's going to be one to watch out for.
Yeah, well, a guy who's responsible for 28 touchdowns. Like Washington, so how many touchdowns do they have aside from him? There's one guy who's thrown a touchdown pass. And then there's a small handful of guys that have 2 or 3, rushing touchdowns.
He is their offense.
Right. He really is.
And he's their scoring, as I said, leading passer, obviously, as a quarterback, but the fact that he's also a leading rusher, which is tricky to do as a quarterback, as I continue my crusade against the fact that sacks count as negative rushing yards. But I guess, 1, you must not get sacked very often, and 2, just runs for a lot of yards, 575 in the 10 touchdowns. This guy is about as dual threat as you get.
He has been sacked 23 times.
Ooh.
Goodness gracious, and he still has 600 yards?
For a negative 167 yards against him.
So this is a dude who's looking at, if you're counting by
nearly a 1,000-yard rusher.
Yeah.
By the time the season is done, he's on pace to do that.
Yeah, so that's what we're looking at, 700-something yards if we're taking out sacks from the equation. Like that's the level of, and take out all those rush attempts, and he's probably averaging close to 6, 7, 8 yards per carry, probably, as opposed to his official stats, which is 4.6 yards per carry.
The more you guys keep talking, the more my heartburn and anxiety goes up for the Aggie defense this weekend.
Well, look, against Texas Tech, Mateer rushed the ball for 197 yards. So this is a problem for Utah State. They struggled with the dynamic quarterback in Dampier with UNLV. They struggled, with New Mexico. They struggled with the dynamic rushing quarterback with Haj Malik Williams with UNLV. Maddox Madsen wasn't really the problem with Boise. It was all Ashton Genty. Madsen didn't need to rush. But I thought Utah State did make some inroads last game, not last week, but their last opponent, which was against Wyoming, because Svoboda was supposed to be this big, rumbling, rushing quarterback. And I thought the Aggies did a pretty good job of holding him in check in that regard and kind of forced Wyoming to make a quarterback change, and because he wasn't as effective. And so I don't know if that's so much that Utah State defensively has figured something out with containing a mobile quarterback, or just Wyoming is just that bad.
I think the problem is that Evan Svoboda isn't a dual threat quarterback. He's a one threat, and it's not his arm.
Yeah.
And if we're talking about threats, it's like a petty misdemeanor. It's not a thing big.
Yeah, so I think that was the trick there, is that they were able to, mostly shut down that run. There were a couple times Svoboda kind of got out and ran, but the fact that he couldn't punish him throwing the ball really helped the Aggies with that. Like when he came in for that goal line, they were able to settle out on a couple straight runs and stuffed Wyoming on that goal line stand, where Svoboda had they had 2 straight rushes, and one was Svoboda, one was the running back, and they stood up pretty well, and they forced an incomplete on 3rd down. But the fact is, Mateer, this is a guy who completes 61% of his passes, averages 270 yards per game through the air. So in 18 touchdowns and just 6 interceptions. So the fact that he is a true dual threat, it was like Devin Dampier. Like that's probably your first real dual threat, because Haj Malik Williams didn't really impress me with his throwing all that much. Felt like he missed a lot of open throws. Dampier really didn't so much. He wasn't perfect, but he was pretty solid through the air and on the ground, and we saw how much that killed the Aggies. And so it is just key number 1 is don't let Mateer be a true dual threat. if he's throwing for 350 yards, then I guess you're just going to have to live with that as long as you don't let him rush for another 50, 60, 70. Because the Aggie defense isn't good enough to stop him completely. So just don't let him be a dual threat quarterback. And I think that'll go at least a pretty decent way to containing this Washington State offense.
I think Francois did a pretty good job spying Dampier in the first quarter, first half of that New Mexico game. And I think that's something we could see here too. Another thing is watching Washington State, this guy is their engine. If he gets going, he gets the whole team fired up. Everybody rallies behind him. If we can somehow frustrate him with that spy, turn him into a one-dimensional to go through the air, and let our DBs go back there and feast a little bit. 23 sacks. That he's prone to get hit. So, Sloan has been a man possessed the last couple of weeks. We could cause some problems for him.
Yeah, there are some legitimate concerns at Washington State about the consistency on their offensive line. They've had to swap guys out. They've had to rotate guys in and out. Some of that's due to injury. Some of just inconsistent play. So there can be some chances where Utah State can get after him. And apply pressure. But in fact, I thought you asked a really good question on Monday, Jason. I'm trying to remember, was it to Coach Dreiling or to the players? But about pressuring the quarterback, but also trying to contain him. Because sometimes if defenses really get after them, that opens up wide gaps for a mobile quarterback to slip through, and then there's nobody there. And they can just slip contain pretty quickly. And all of a sudden, before you know it, they've already picked up a first down before it's turned their head. Yeah,
so it was DJ Graham that I ended up asking that to. Yeah, basically that same principle, like getting pressure without letting him run away. And this is what Graham had to say.
Yeah, that's the tricky. It's like it's like yin and yang. We have to, come off the ball quick, but at the same time, keep integrity to the defense and keep them inside. I don't know. It's tough, but, again, what I come down to do, like what I always say is just be able to do our jobs. And, if we do that and, we take coaching and we just, stay in our gaps, I feel like we could keep them contained. That's the biggest thing. And, it's not necessarily just a big sack. It could come down to like a QB hurry. Or if we do get him out the pocket, force him into a bad throw. So it's not necessarily just sack him and put him down, but it's just more. It's more to it. So if we could do that, I feel like we'll be fine.
Yeah, I liked a lot of what DJ Graham said there, especially kind of at the end, because as far as pressuring the quarterback, there's a lot that goes into that. A big part that we're kind of focusing on here is not letting the quarterback escape, and we've seen the Aggies do that where they put pressure on the quarterback. And they let him get away. And then that's where they can make, some of these backyard throws or just, good old-fashioned scramble for yards. But the key is if you're doing pressure right, then you're forcing the QB off his spot. You're throwing off their timing, which that alone can cause an incompletion. Or better yet, it can force a bad pass. Because say you don't get a sack, but he throws the wrong kind of pass, like even if he's making the right read, but his pass is thrown poorly because there's a defender breathing down his neck, almost literally. Well, that can lead to an overthrown or underthrown pass, and it ends up in the arms of a defender because like 90% of interceptions aren't ones that are like earned by the defensive back. They're just thrown at the defender because, the quarterback made a bad pass, either on his own or forced by the pass rush. So that's where the pass rush can have a huge impact, where maybe they're not just stopping Washington State by just having perfect coverage. It's that balance between the pass rush, making it easier on the defensive backs. By getting an effective pass rush, don't let him escape and either put his, back on the turf or force a bad throw, maybe give a chance for a dynamic play via a turnover. And so that, I think, is as far as stopping Mateer, that's probably your number one hope, is to generate some sort of consistent pass rush. Because one, that'll keep him from scrambling and getting effective yards. And then that obviously has a huge impact on his ability to throw the ball, because it's really hard to throw in college football when you're lying on your back.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult.
No.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
They can do that in the NFL. It's legally allowed.
I watch Patrick Mahomes do it like every week.
Yeah.
Throwing some.
But once you put your butt on the ground, you can't throw it anymore.
Yes, no, that's true. And that really, this game really comes down to how well does Utah State contain Mateer? Can they pressure him? Can they get him off schedule? Can they make him uncomfortable? If they can do that, they're going to give themselves chances. Yes, Washington State has had a few games where they've scored a lot of points, but that was one was a double overtime game against San Jose. One was against their lower division opponent. In most of their other games, this really isn't what I would call a high-powered offense that scores a ton of points. So Mateer does a lot, but I think that there could be some opportunities for Utah State if they can disrupt him and keep him a little bit off schedule.
Eric, I'm looking at the schedule. Do you think Washington State could actually play to their opponents? I mean, if you remove Portland State if you just remove Portland State and maybe Hawaii, if you look at it, they kind of hang close to everybody and they play to their level. And so, San Diego State, we're talking about a team that's interested in the college football playoff. I don't believe you could say that and then the next sentence say they only beat San Diego State by 3 points and have a straight face.
Well, look, I thought that watching that San Diego State-Washington State game 2 weeks ago, I thought, okay, this is interesting. San Diego State may be a little bit better defensively than I was giving them credit for earlier. And then the following week, I watched San Diego State against Boise State, and they got crushed. Now, Boise State is on another level. I got to give them credit for that. But San Diego State didn't look like they were in the same business as the Broncos. But they sure looked like they were against the Cougars the week before. So is Boise State just that much better than everybody else? Or is Washington State just not quite as dynamic and as crushing? But look, they're 7-1. They're finding ways to win. They may not be blowing opponents away, but they're finding ways to win, and you have to give them credit for that.
Yeah, and I think you do, because even if they're playing down to their opponents or they're just a middling, level Mountain West team, they win when it matters.
Yeah.
And that's the important thing. So even if Utah State keeps it close, we've seen the Aggies crumble in close games, and Washington State hasn't really. Their one loss was a game against Boise State where Boise State just kind of pulled away in the second half, and the Cougars didn't really have a chance to keep up.
And I don't even think that's the Boise State team we're getting right now, because teams are trying to stack the box against them to beat Genty, and Madsen's coming out.
Yeah, San Diego State absolutely stacked the box.
Yeah, there was like 13 players in the box and a defensive coordinator and a water boy most of the time. But,
yeah, basically, and he still got $149 in that game.
Yes, he did.
Madsen came out, and the last couple of games, that game against UNLV, I tell you what, you compare college football playoff contenders, those two teams, I feel a lot more optimistic about a matchup with the Cougars than I did about the Broncos a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and hit a break really quick. We've got a couple of texts on this topic that we can get to after the break. I'll continue this conversation and also talk about Utah State's offense. This is a team that's having to adjust in life after Jalen Royals and Brock Lane, two of their top receivers. How are they going to adjust to that? Can they put up enough points? They've been dynamic on offense at times, but can they still be dynamic without some of their biggest stars? We'll get into that coming up next here on the Full Court Press.
Holiday parties and events at the Riverwoods Conference Center offer a festive and fun holiday atmosphere. Paired with catering from Elements Restaurant, your special occasion can include tasty hors d'oeuvres, delicious entrees, and decadent desserts that always deliver excellence. Now accepting reservations for this holiday season. The Riverwoods Conference Center and Elements Restaurant easily accommodate large or small events. Visit theriverwoods.com or call 750-5151.
Advanced Heating and AC and Advanced Fireplace and Stove want to help local families this year with a food drive. Drop off your canned foods at Advanced Heating across from DI or hand them to one of their technicians when they come to your home for a repair. And to say thank you, the Advanced team will match all your contributions and offer a 20% discount on your next service call. Find out more at AdvancedFireplaceandStove.com or call 752-7272. Donate to Advanced Fireplace and Stove's canned food drive for local families.
We're not comfortable until you are.
Advanced Heating and Air.
Hi, I'm Jay Broadbent with Alpine Home Medical. I'd like to invite you to learn more about us. Since 1997, we've been Utah's premier one-stop shop for home medical equipment. What sets us apart at Alpine Home Medical is the superior level of customer service. We provide home oxygen, CPAPs, wheelchairs, scooters, breast pumps, and so much more. Come on down and get to know us.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
Visit alpinehomemedical.com.
Are you looking for compassionate and reliable care for yourself or a loved one? Look no further than Agis Home Health and Hospice. I'm Tom Sherlock, a licensed social worker, part of the dedicated team of professionals committed to meeting the needs of our community. Voted best in Northern Utah 2 years in a row, we pride ourselves on delivering exceptional service that you can depend on. We're here to ensure comfort and dignity every step of the way. When it comes to your health, choose the agency that Northern Utah trusts the most. Choose Agis. Visit myagis.com or call today 435-723-9000.
It doesn't matter who you root for. The Full Court Press has all the high school sports covered. The Full Court Press. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and online at 1069thefan.com.
Here on the Full Court Press, Jason Walker, JD Walker, Eric Frandsen. Glad to have you on board here on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan. Streaming online, 1069thefan.com, the 1069 The Fan mobile app, and of course on our podcast feed whenever we get it published. Eric always publishes it like during the show. He'll like have the first hour published during the first hour.
We're not getting this credit going. He jumps in a time machine before the hour is over and posts it. So it's before we're even done recording, it's up there. Seconds after we turn off the mic for the hour, Eric has got it posted.
It's a little game I play with myself to see if I can get it posted before the next show begins.
Basically, I won't be quite as fast, but usually when we're on point, or assuming one of us is on the job, we'll have it published the evening of the show. So if you can't catch us live, you can always catch us on our podcast feed on 1069thefan.com or wherever you get your podcast. Just search the Full Court Press.
And then just be grateful for Jason and Eric that they'll post it the same day, because when it's me in charge, man, I don't think I've got last month's episodes posted up yet. I think Eric actually took care of that when he came back. Yeah.
So let's get to our Full Court Press text line. If you guys want to join the show, you can text 435-339-0321. Any thoughts on Utah State football or any of the other topics at hand? 8968 with a couple of texts saying if Washington State was still in the Pac-12 as the Pac-12, it wouldn't be 7-1.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, not the way the Pac-12 was going pretty strong at least the last year. They were pretty good, not like elite, but they had 3 or 4 or 5 ranked teams.
So I was actually looking for some stuff today. The Sporting News. We sometimes talk about this. We look at variety of different publications who put rankings together 1 through 134 for college football, and the Sporting News is always late compared to everybody else. So yesterday I accumulated everybody else except for the Sporting News. So today I'm going around trying to figure it out, and they don't have it posted. And I checked multiple times through the day. I don't know if they're waiting for the college football playoff rankings to come out, but they didn't post theirs today. But in the process, I went to their college football page and looked at standings for different conferences. And so I hit the Pac-12 because I'm just doing some research on Washington State. Well, they have all the old Pac-12 members listed under the Pac-12 standings.
Sporting News living in the glory days of the Pac-12.
What is this?
If you want the latest news from the Sporting News, you have to subscribe to their magazine.
Apparently. The intern forgot to hit the update on the software.
I was on a site today. It was, covers Mountain West, and their front page has articles from 2021 still on it. It's like,
yikes.
It's like, what is the formatting and algorithm going on here? Where it's like,
yeah, the Pac-12, I think Lincoln Riley's a fraud. Let's just throw that out there. He got a generational quarterback that looks kind of generational in Chicago. Looks like
he looked generational in college.
Yeah,
but that's the way you have in college. Every year there's a generational quarterback. Every year. and then they're not generational, because it turns out that's actually pretty rare.
But Miller Moss was the guy going into the season. He's not anymore. They just made the switch today.
Yeah, they're going to go with the UNLV quarterback to replace him. They've lost 4 in a row.
Yeah,
just trying 4 of the last 5, something like that. So they're trying to jumpstart their program. So yeah, USC definitely in a different path than when the Aggies saw them earlier in the year.
Yeah, USC looking like they were going to be
world beaters. Yeah,
Big Ten contenders, and now they're just kind of sitting there at the bottom. Turns out all the stereotypes about Pac-12 teams not being able to hang in the Big 12 was mostly correct.
Unless we're talking about the O.
I was about to say, there is one major exception to that.
This is for me being a Ducks fan since the early 80s, I tell you what, I get nervous every week watching them because we've had several deep runs. We lost Dennis Dillon to a Achilles injury a couple of years ago when he was a Heisman candidate, and the team just fell apart. And so watching Dylan Gabriel, Dan Lanning in this team, you're right. Washington State would not be 7-1 and not towards the top. They would have been beat up by a lot of other guys. But all the guys who jumped, they're kind of having really rough years, except for Oregon.
Who knows? Maybe that money will eventually
dry up, and everybody comes back to regional because travel becomes too expensive.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. Those checks cause all the administrators love it, but all the people it actually impacts, they don't get any of that money.
Enough zeros to make that pain go away.
Yeah, well, it's enough for the administrators to forget about all the complaining they get, all the emails from all the coaches being like, my players are like considering quitting the sport because it's so awful. But the administrators are like, but there's 2 commas.
I never realized in English class that I'd be so affectionately attached to commas for my whole life.
Yes.
Commas and extra zeros and decimal points in the very specific spots. Very nice.
I would like to see checks get like algebraic multipliers and stuff like that to the second power. But
your paycheck is
squared
is x squared plus AB or something like that. Anyway, let's move off of math because I'm getting anxiety over remembering all of my high school and college classes. Let's go to some more of these texts. 9 through 5 had several of them, I believe. Asking when we were talking about John Mateer and his passing ability, and 9 through 5 asking how many interceptions does Washington State have?
According to my astute research and ESPN, 6 is what he's got.
6 he's thrown 6 interceptions, 18 touchdowns. He's also rushed for 10 touchdowns.
Yeah, so this is not a guy who really has turnover problems. I need to double check how many fumbles he has. I know when I was looking to see how many.
I'm not aware that he has any fumbles.
Yeah, the page I'm looking at doesn't really ever record fumbles by the offense very well. So I don't know if he's fumbled. A lot of times running quarterbacks will tend to have fumbles, or quarterbacks tend to have more fumbles than most anyway, just because strip sacks are a thing. But in getting sacked 23 times, you expect maybe a couple of those to produce fumbles, but I don't think
As a team, they have 4 fumbles, 2 lost, but don't know if that was...
So turnover is not really an issue for Washington State. You've got 8 of them in 8 games. I think a lot of teams would love that number as far as not giving the ball away.
I'd love it for the Aggies.
Yeah,
like, let's do that.
The Aggies have turned the ball over less in recent weeks, though. It was a bit of an issue, especially Spencer Petras was throwing a decent amount of interceptions, and we had 2 in his debut with the Aggies. But then he's been a lot better of late. I mean, he has 7 on the season overall. And then looking at the last few games, pulling it up right now just to, like in the last 2 games, they have 2 total turnovers. They did have 4 against UNLV, but like look at against Temple 1 against Boise State, kind of the outlier UNLV 4, and then 2 and 0. So,
I mean, you gotta look at his performance, and I think my mind shift changes when I realize like the kind of quarterback he is, and when he fits it into those tight windows. sometimes when you have that burst to fit it in that tight window, it bounces and ricochets can happen. But really, looking across the country, and you guys will have more insight on this on the history, Spencer's having a really good season as an Aggie quarterback. Like I'm looking at the yardage. He is less than 50 yards away from his career high, and he's got the highest completion percentage that he's had ever, throwing at 65%, and he's got a career high in TDs. His quarterback rating's also up there too. How does he rate so far? I know we've got 4 games left in his Aggies career. For you guys, when you look at it, I know we've heard a lot of talk about the backup quarterback and stuff, but he's having a really good year for us.
Yeah, his numbers are inflated because of the situation. He's had so many attempts, but the thing is, he's still been efficient in those attempts. Where you can be happy with his performance. Like if you took his per game numbers and stretched them over a 12, 13 game season, he'd be setting just about every record that they have in terms of passing. He'd do what Chucky Keaton did, what Jordan Love did, what Logan Bonner did. Each of those quarterbacks rewrote the record book in their great seasons. Petrus would be doing the same. Missing a few games is going to mean that he's probably not really going to break any records. Maybe the per game passing, where he's at 304 right now.
He has set a single game passing attempts record.
Yeah, and that's a big reason why he's getting tons and tons of yards. But like his yards per attempt is 7.4, which is a really solid number. So yes, the raw yardage is a bit inflated, but he's still pretty efficient in that. The 65% completion percentage, which is a big improvement for him. And it's similar in a lot of ways to what Logan Bonner did, where Logan Bonner was a sub 60% completion percentage quarterback, a guy who was, I think, just about even in touchdowns and interceptions at Arkansas State, comes to Utah State, had by far his most efficient season, his by far most productive season, and I was kind of expecting Spencer Petrus to maybe have that kind of same jump. Get into an offense that really facilitates the quarterback to use their talents. Spencer Petrus has largely done so. The team has a lot of problems around him, so it's not really led to many wins, but Spencer Petrus has been a bright spot, and I think, statistically, he'll go down as one of the better quarterbacks. As far as impact on winning, he won't, but that's just kind of the nature of the beast.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Spencer's been a nice addition, and as we've said this many different times, in the spring, it was clear he was the best quarterback of the group, even with McKay Hillstead and Cooper Legas still on the roster. And so those guys weren't run out of town, but the coaches made the decision, like, Spencer gives us the best chance to run the offense like we want to run it. He's the best thrower. We want to be more of a throwing offense than a rushing quarterback offense. And then those other guys didn't like that, and so they left. They didn't want to play the backup role to that, and so they left, despite Utah State trying to keep him. And Spencer's also, it's taken him a minute to get into it because he was away from organized football for a while because of injuries. So it took him a minute to get caught up to speed, but now that he is there, he's been a really nice addition for Utah State under center. Now, going up against Washington State, this is a team that has some pretty good edge rushers and some solid linebackers. This isn't necessarily a team that has a ton of takeaways, but they do pressure the quarterback and have had some success doing that.
Yeah, and well, the big key, and as I kind of tease going into the break, Utah State's had, a very dynamic wide receiver. Jalen Royals was pretty much doing just what he was a year ago, putting up crazy numbers. Well, Jalen Royals is done for the season, as is Brock Lane. So you're down 2 of your pretty solid pass catchers if you're Spencer Petrus. And those guys played a massive role in Petrus being able to, throw for 300-plus yards per game. And I do not think it was a coincidence in the slightest that when Petrus suddenly didn't have Jalen Royals to throw to, his production dropped off fairly well. Like he completed, he'd had games against UNLV where he completed 69% of his passes, 68% of his passes. Then he goes down to 64. He went from throwing 372 against Temple, 461 against UNLV, 360 against New Mexico. Excuse me, it said 372 against Temple. I might say Boise State, but 3 straight games with 360 plus yards, 4 straight games with 290 yards. No Jalen Royals, and he throws for 194. I don't think that's a coincidence in the slightest. So Petrus is missing a big part of the offense that helped him look really good. And I think it took him a minute to adjust and trying to get the ball, instead of to a star like Jalen Royals who's going to be open, he's going to go up there and get it. He's throwing to guys who don't have as steady hands, guys like Otto Tia, Kyrese White, guys who have been at times pretty good, but not nearly as consistent as Jalen was. So that's kind of the worry that I think I have going forward is with Jalen Royals. I would have loved this Utah State offense I would have been pretty confident that they could go out there and put 30-plus points on Washington State. With that passing offense with Royals and balancing out with Rasul Faison, who had a resurgence in that Wyoming game. But you worry about the Aggies being a little too one-dimensional without Royals. And so you got to have guys step up. And I'm not as confident in this wide receiver group behind Royals as I was in the offseason. I was loving Kyrese White and Otto Tia, guys who I thought could kind of be the Derek White and Brandon Bowling as, like they were to Devin Tompkins, be like that to Jalen Royals. They have not been that.
No, and that was something that we started to discover earlier in the season and for a good chunk of the season, that Royals had such a gravity to what he would do to an opposing defense that these other guys were able to find opportunities. Now that's gone, so teams can be a little bit more balanced in how they approach Utah State defensively. So it's going to be more of a challenge for these guys to do some of the things that they were doing before. Not that the defense would just ignore them. They would still have a guy to pay attention to them. But they did have a special attention. Where's number one on offense? We got to make sure we know where he is at all times. And despite that, he would still get chunk yards. Now it's going to be even more important that the rest of these guys run clean routes, that they gain confidence from their quarterback, Spencer Petrus, that he knows he can throw in their direction and they're going to make a play. And I think that it's been a bit of a mixed bag. We've seen some of these wide receivers drop the ball or not run clean routes or create separation consistently. Sometimes they do, but they haven't done it consistently. And that's why I think this bye week was really important for USU, at least for the offense, to give Spencer and those other pass-catching players, so include running backs and tight ends in that, to become more comfortable and on the same page together to understand life without Jalen Royals.
I say we split out Faison and put him out there after that catch last week.
He caught 4 passes last week.
He did. It's really one of those things that to utilize Faison with just because once he gets the ball, it's like a bowling ball on a pool table. Like you're just going to knock defenders around. Now throw a Herschel Turner in there. That's like the super bouncy ball on the pool table, and it'll just go everywhere on the field. Great opportunities. And I was optimistic on Spencer, and then Jason, hit me with the hammer of doom. But looking at some of his numbers, Spencer steps up during big games. They have his breakdown versus the top 25, his completion percentage at 65%, averaging over 350 yards against top, 25 teams and 3 touchdowns. So when it comes to the big games, he steps up. We just got to get Stickum, I think is what I referenced to 2 weeks ago. We need to get an NIL deal with Stickum. The poor kid from the Little Giants has all that stuff on him. We need some of that stuff for the
get the wide receivers to, again, it's catching the ball and then separation. I think those are the 2 biggest things. The Aggies were struggling when the wide receivers weren't getting separation. That was one of the biggest problems with the passing game last week, because Petrus didn't have anyone to throw to because nobody was gaining separation. So that would be a key again against Washington State.
Yeah, the offensive line is good enough where they're going to give him time. They'll give him enough protection for him to go down through progressions to find somebody. But it's up to the wide receivers to run clean routes and give him open targets.
I had a couple texts, I believe, from 9-15 before we go to break. So I think missing a wide receiver on offense is a great thing because we have a lot of other really good players that can catch a ball and opens more opportunities that opposing defenses won't have seen on tape or will underestimate. Yeah, that's something I'd hope to see is have somebody step up. That's where Jack Hystera, I think, stepped up in a big way a few weeks back, but we haven't seen him break out as much. As far as developing guys for next year, you hope so, but then you have the transfer portal, and so I'm not sure how many of these guys stick around, but always a bit of a worry there.
But there's plenty of guys to go from. It's not like you have to find some guy that we haven't seen yet and just magically appear on the field and have a big game. I mean, there's Colby Bowman, Grant Page, Jack Costero. I mean, there's plenty of guys that have seen the field and have potential. We just haven't seen consistency.
Yeah, just about all of them caught a pass or a couple passes, but we've not seen them with volume. That's kind of the difference between them before and now.
I got to think in practice, Eric, that had to be a key point for Spencer, just to work repetitions with those guys and, in practice with the first team offense to get in there and get comfortable. So, I mean, I actually like it. Maybe we're going to see some more familiarity with his new targets out there. And not only are they different targets, but they're in different roles. Without Jalen out there, other roles are going to have to be filled. So maybe we'll see a comfort level with Spencer up at Wazoo this week after 2 weeks off, hanging out with the receivers and doing practice.
One final text before we go to break, 9-5 again. QB at USU breaking records. Tell me Kyle Cefalo... to keep Kyle Cefalo around, his wide receiver play would help recruiting high-level quarterbacks. I know that would certainly be a try. It's what brought Spencer Petras here. He saw the offense, said, that's for me, and that's what brought him here. Even before he left Iowa, he knew where he was going.
Kyle Cefalo has been fantastic with developing wide receivers. And my 2 cents for what it's worth, it'd be great to retain Kyle Cefalo and Cooper Bassett on the coaching staff going next year if it's possible.
Yeah. Can we just reference Coach Bassett bringing in a haul this week of future Aggie offensive linemen? Ladies and gentlemen, the offensive lineman of the Aggies is a strong point this year and will continue to be in the future. We got some big news this week.
The first question Diana Sabo needs to ask coaches she's interviewing for the next job is, all right, question 1, will you retain Cooper Bassett as your offensive line coach? And if the answer isn't a yes within like 0.005 seconds, then they should be shown the door of the interview room.
We don't even send the plane if they don't say yes.
Yeah,
we don't even send the plane.
That's the preliminary inquiry is, will you retain Cooper Bassett? Yes. Okay, fine. We can have an interview.
Yeah. We can move on. We can go further.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be back after this here on the Full Court Press.
This is Justin Hamilton from Cafe Sabor and Off-Premise Catering. The holidays can be so hectic. That's why I'm so excited to make your holiday catering so simple. Maybe it's a last-minute holiday office lunch, family get-together, or corporate party. I can handle any size gathering with my Off-Premise Catering team. You'll love Cafe Sabor's favorites are Hamilton steak and seafood, prime rib, salmon, and all the trimmings. The menu is up to you. Let my Off-Premise Catering team handle your last-minute holiday event at your office, home, Cafe Sabor, or one of our many banquet facilities. Call 755-9500. That's 755-9500. Happy holidays from your friends at Cafe Sabor and your Off-Premise Catering team.
Over the past few years, strong and crazy weather patterns have battered various parts of the country. Northern Utah and southern Idaho are not immune from its share of wild weather. Be prepared for power outages with a Generac backup generator from Golden Spike Electric. They are your local source for Generac sales and service. Generac keeps you in control when bad weather strikes. Golden Spike Electric, powering your peace of mind. Online at gsegenerators.com or call 257-3016. They also service other models.
Now here's a concept. You earmark 1/3 of your profits to go back into the community, to local charities. Dex Imaging does that. My name is Anthony Wagoner, and I'd like to share with you what I know about Dex, the company that acquired Valley Office Systems. Dex Imaging is committed to continuing quality customer service while raising the bar to become a strong community partner. Join us in creating the brightest image for tomorrow. Contact us at deximaging.com.
It's that first kiss, that moment in time.
This is Jarek from Jarek's Fine Jewelry. Everyone knows us as an engagement ring store, but not everyone knows about everything else we do. Custom design, our in-house laser jewelry repair. We offer fashion jewelry, charm bracelets, necklaces, earrings, birthstone jewelry, watches. We love people to just look and make a wish list. Stop in and say hi.
Jarek's Fine Jewelry. Make it special. Make it Jarek's.
This is Catherine Buse with Cache Valley Bank, and we understand that concerns about fraud can weigh heavily on you. Your peace of mind is important to us. That's why we're committed to looking out for you and your family. Our team keeps a vigilant eye on your account. If you ever have concerns or need support, we're just a call or visit away. Whether you need advice or just someone to talk to, our friendly staff is ready to help. We're more than just a bank. We're your neighbors, and we care about your security. Visit your local branch today. Cache Valley Bank, member FDIC.
This is Jay with Daryl's Appliance. I have some breaking news. Black Friday pricing has started at Daryl's Appliance. For a limited time, double dip and get our exclusive mail-in rebates and save up to $1,000 on appliance packages from your favorite brands. Plus, you can triple dip with Daryl's exclusive 2-year warranty on all appliances delivered and installed by Daryl's. Daryl's Black Friday sale. See store for details. Daryl's West on Airport Road, open until 6 p.m. on weekdays, 5 on Saturday.
Les Olson IT's structured cabling is second to none. Tired of old and inefficient cabling? Have an upgrade or remodel planned? Building a new network from the ground up? We offer the very best in low voltage cabling installation, including data, phone, fiber optic, and more. Ask us how to get your free consultation today.
Les Olson IT.
This is Ryan at My Mattress. A few years ago, I saw this sign hanging in a gas station. It said price, quality, service. Pick 2 out of the 3. Now, it's funny, and I did laugh, but at My Mattress, we don't even want to do business unless we can do all 3. Price, quality, and service. We have a 90-day sleep guarantee, 90-day price guarantee, and we will answer the phone if you have a warranty concern. At My Mattress, we deliver, we have financing, we strive to be price, quality, and service every day. Isn't it time to sleep exceptionally? Only at My Mattress.
Join the show by calling 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
As the days keep getting shorter, the temperatures are getting colder. I mean, there's snow outside, so that's how you know it's getting colder. So, it's maybe a little too late to have fully prepared, but we're not completely in the frozen yet. So if you want to make sure that your car is ready for the cold or doesn't leave you stranded in the cold, make sure to stop by your locally owned Napa Auto Parts. If your battery is more than 4 years old, make sure to stop in, get it tested. And if you need a new one, they can help you get a new battery and even help install it for you. All that and more at one of your locally owned Preston to Providence Napa Auto Parts locations. All right, so let's skip over to we've got the stat that blew our mind and our Full Court Press Players of the Week. Why don't we go ahead and start with the stat that blew our mind?
Let's take a look at the numbers. It's the stat that blew our minds.
He did what?
On the Full Court Press.
Wow, that blew my mind.
All right, Eric, why don't we start out with you? What's the stat that blew your mind?
It's a young NBA season, so I know there's still a lot that can change. But in this early goings, there are only 2 teams in the NBA Eastern Conference who have winning records. That's Cleveland and Boston. Cleveland is undefeated. They're 8-0. Boston is 7-1. In addition to that, Detroit has more wins this season so far than Milwaukee and Philadelphia combined. Detroit's 3-5, by the way.
So not super impressive, but
it's an idea how bad Philadelphia and Milwaukee are right now.
Yeah, just
and
really
they beat
struggling.
the Lakers last night, I think. Yeah.
By the way, there are 9 teams in the West with winning records.
And there you go. The West is best. That's the way it's been for a long time in the NBA. JD, you got one for us?
I do. I'm going. Mine is 3 amigos out there at Ridgeline. Nate, JT, and Graham responsible for 6 touchdowns between the 3 amigos versus Hurricane. And just congratulations to Ridgeline out there doing some great stuff in the playoffs.
There you go. So mine, I don't know, a little negative about the Utah Jazz, but it just kind of blew my mind.
Shocker. Jason's going to be negative, Eric? Man, breaking news.
That's my reputation. Keontae George, he had a fantastic game yesterday. But despite that, but I think it's either before that or maybe even despite that, he is an NBA worst -102.
Oh, my word.
On his plus-minus when he's been on the floor this season. It's been a struggle, but it was really nice to see him break out of that finally and getting himself 33 points, 9 assists. So pretty solid outing for him there. Don't know if I quite have the time to play the bit, but let's get into our Full Court Press Players of the week. And JD, I'll turn to you. We can start with you.
Players, I would just have to go to my three amigos at Ridgeline that did it, that played it out. That's what I came prepared for. I watched that game, so I was really impressed with them there, and really cheering on Ridgeline and our other class teams up here for high school football.
So JD going with the multi-award there. I'm going to kind of go a similar route, though. I'm going to go even broader, and I'm just going to say all of Utah State soccer. I could specify the 11 players and 10 players plus one coach that earned all Mountain West honors, 14 overall awards / honors between 10 players, one coach. Manny Martin's coach of the year, and then 10 players earning, 5 first team all Mountain West selections. You got newcomer of the year, Cora Brendel, defensive player of the year in Caitlin Richens. 2 players in the second team, 4 on the all newcomer team. Cora Brendel got 3 different awards. All newcomer of the year, second team all Mountain West, just stacking trophies in that Utah State locker room.
Yes, well deserving. For me, I'm going to go with John Collins, Utah Jazz. 28 points, 13 boards, 5 assists. He had a block in the Jazz win over the Bulls. And he's had a nice week filling in as Larry Markkinen has been hurt, just playing a larger role, getting assists, blocks, steals, doing a lot of different things to help these young Utah Jazz team being that steady veteran on the court.
Yeah, I got to love John Collins' his veteran role. I know I keep dragging on him for the fact that him and Walker Kessler didn't seem to work as a unit, but making things work a little bit more, especially in that last game against the Bulls. We'll talk about that game coming up in the next hour, but we're also going to have a women's basketball recap for Utah State. That's next on the Full Court Press next hour.
I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise. The Chiefs look like the best team in football, but despite the team's undefeated record, many continue to question the Chiefs' offensive firepower. At 35, relying solely on Travis Kelce could be a scary proposition. But if we learned anything from last year's playoffs and last night, the 4-time All-Pro and future Hall of Famers is always there when you need him. 2023 was the most significant example of that. He failed to record a 1,000-yard season for the first time in 7 years. Things were a different story with the season on the line in the playoffs. He averaged 8 catches for just under 90 yards, scored 3 touchdowns in 4 games, en route to a 3rd Super Bowl. Those aren't the numbers we should expect from Kelce on a weekly basis, but as we saw last night, when the team needs him the most, he's still impactful. And with an elite coach, great quarterback, and a defense that's already in place, until further notice, the Chiefs are still the best team in football. I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise. What's your favorite part of football Sunday? The weekend's biggest game, tailgating, maybe watch parties with family and friends? Of course not. Football Sundays are all about the food, and nothing better than a King's Hawaiian Slider Sundae. Whether it's the original Hawaiian sweet rolls, slider buns, or pretzel slider buns. Soft, fluffy, irresistible. King's Hawaiian, delicious, and built to enjoy with friends and family. A King's Hawaiian Slider Sundae, the only way to enjoy Sunday. Go to the bakery or deli section of your local store and pick up King's Hawaiian and enjoy.
Hey, are you a whiskey lover? If so, you have to try the new Keeper's Heart whiskey. Keeper's Heart is one of the first to blend Irish and American whiskey. And it's really good. So good, in fact, Keeper's Heart has been recognized as one of the world's best whiskeys for the way it brings together the boldness of American whiskey with the smoothness of Irish whiskey. It's the perfect matchup. Keeper's Heart is a legend in the making. Trust us, you gotta try it. Drink responsibly.
Days get shorter, temperatures get colder. Be prepared with a stop at your local Napa Auto Parts. Snow, ice, and cold weather are all hard on wiper blades. Napa features long-lasting silicone wiper blades from Rain-X and Trico. Stop in for a new set. They'll even help you install them. They'll also help you install a new battery if you need it. Pick up some House diesel treatment and get the case lot pricing, $12 for a half-gallon jug. Be prepared for cold weather and snow with help from your friends at your locally owned Preston to Providence Napa Auto Parts.
When it comes to home care, it's important to know you have a choice. If you or a loved one is in need of hospice or home health services, remember that Primrose Home Care and Hospice believes in treating the patient as well as the problem. We work directly with you and your doctor to create a health plan that's catered to your needs. Our team is devoted to providing options in the freedom and safety of your own home. Visit us at primrosecare.com or call to schedule a free consultation. Primrose Home Care and Hospice, your local hospice and home health provider since 2006.
The home for Skyview Sports. Sports Talk Radio.